Hello and welcome to week 2 of Education 406 Integrated Reading. Let's take a look at what our learning outcomes are for this week and what your tasks will be through your discussion board and your interactive notebook. When you access the syllabus and you go to week 2, you will find our learning outcomes here for this week. So this week we're going to focus on using picture books to support reading comprehension instruction, analyzing the process of gradual release of responsibility, analyzing integrating technology into reading comprehension, identifying ways to assess reading comprehension, identifying strategies to support students to find good fit books, and then reflect on your experiences as they relate to principles of building a literate community in elementary classrooms. So again, as I shared, we'll assess those outcomes through your discussion board, your interactive notebook, some anchor charts that you're going to be working on, and your strategies that work chapters 4 through 5. So going back into our Blackboard course, going into your weekly content, and then going into week 2, you will see here you have access to the discussion board. So the discussion board speaks to chapter 5. You are reading chapter 4 and 5 this week. This speaks to chapter 5, about setting the tone for building a literate community in your classroom. Taking a moment to reflect on classroom experiences or your personal experiences in elementary reading. Of the 9 principles to guide setting a strong tone for a literate classroom community, what did you notice? Choose at least 3 to speak to and provide evidence of how your room or experience is or is not evidence of these effective principles. So first of all, just a reminder, if you are a TA in a classroom, you're going to speak to this in your partner classroom. If you are in a field experience for another course, then you will speak to that placement. If you are not in a field experience, you're not in a partner school, then I would like for you to reflect on an experience that you have had. And so think back to a reading classroom if you have a memory of that. If not, just kind of think about maybe a past field experience that you have. And so we want to make sure that we are setting the tone correctly and that we know that that looks like. So in chapter 5, it speaks about fostering a passion and curiosity, an environment that values collaborative learning and thinking, large blocks of time for extended reading and writing, so really allowing all of these things to happen uninterrupted. That language matters, authentic response opportunities, responsive teaching, and differentiation. So within those large blocks of time, we are able to differentiate our instruction in direct response to the things that students are needing, because we're in there with them and we're conferencing with them and we're seeing what's happening in their reading and writing, and we're able to meet that need. That text matters, that your room arrangement matters, so that's something that teachers may not have considered before, that the layout of the room and the layout of the seating chart really makes an impact in the building the classroom community to be literacy focused. And also accessible resources, not just your resources as the teacher, but the kids' resources. They need to be independent in getting those resources, so are they accessible? So of those 9 items that I just shared and that are in your chapter 5, pick about 3, no less than 3, to speak to and how you have or have not seen those before. Now, those are all pieces that we as teachers need to make sure we're putting together in our classroom so that we're providing the best opportunity possible for them to be able to meet the needs of their readers in their classroom. So that is going to be your discussion board for this week. So please take a minute to make sure that you're doing that. Because this is now digging into the chapter in the textbook, remember that I want you to provide evidence. So here where it says provide evidence of how your room, so you're going to speak to, I did observe this because this is what I saw and the text supports this. Or I did not observe this, this is what should be happening based on what the textbook is saying. So please just take a minute to make sure that you are providing evidence so that you receive full credit for your discussion board information. Also this week in your anchor chart, in your interactive notebook, you're going to be working on an anchor chart. So at this point, you've already created your interactive notebook, you've already shared it with me, and so when you go in and you navigate to it, my apologies, this is what you're going to find. So I will discuss anchor charts a little bit as we get closer to them here and what your tasks are going to be. But I do want to start first kind of just from top to bottom in here. And first of all, reading instruction in 21st century classrooms. So technology has made textbooks and readers for children and any type of material so accessible. And so in chapter 4, the textbook, the authors speak to 6 principles to enrich comprehension instructions with technology. So in what ways can you differentiate instruction using technology? So we talk about enabling all students to participate and engage more deeply. So many of our schools are one-to-one, or at least have technology resources to where students are able to e-read. And so having those things accessible for them so they're all engaged at higher levels. Providing access to resources, specialists, and texts that would not otherwise be available. So again, those texts that are available because of the technology that's present in the school or in the classroom. But also resources outside of just textbooks. There are many programs that are web-based to support students in their reading practice to build stronger comprehension. Open up a real-world audience for thinking and learning in the classroom. Monitoring and assessing digital products and projects. Meet the needs of diverse learners. And build a foundation for 21st century digital citizenship. So as we're encouraging students to be so well-rounded with technology resources, reading is absolutely a way, and especially reading comprehension is absolutely a way that we can reach them through technology, because honestly, you know, they have so much technology at their fingertips that we can find ways to support that and support that modality for them to learn and strengthen their reading comprehension practices through technology. Also, you're going to be looking at picture books. So picture books for reading comprehension. You know, we kind of think of picture books as something that we use in kindergarten or first grade, but really and truly they have a good purpose, a strong purpose in all levels, even high school levels, even at the university level, you know, using picture books to be able to teach comprehension strategies. So in chapter 4, the authors speak to how they can enrich reading comprehension instruction. So how can they use specifically across any grade level? And so building background knowledge and teaching content. So when it's less maybe about the reading and the process of reading and more about wanting them to build their schema and build their teaching content, you know, the meat behind what they're reading, then using a picture book allows you to get that content across without struggling with the words and the vocabulary maybe of a higher level text. Challenging kids to think, you know, as we provide them with a simpler text because it's a picture book, we're really able to engage them at higher levels and be more reflective in applying the content and infer what they're talking about and predict what may come next. And so challenging them to think about concepts that we want them to know through using a picture book. And therefore also being able to differentiate instruction through using picture books. Picture books with young children, older children, struggling readers, whatever it may be. You know, we're really able to kind of meet the needs of any student using a picture book. It's just a matter of being intentional about picking the right book for the right skill, for the right level of instruction. Choosing good fit books, I'm going to come back to this because this is where your anchor chart is going to come in. So we're going to touch base on the other two and we'll come back to choosing good fit books. Gradual release of responsibility. I want you in chapter 5 to take a look at the information for gradual release of responsibility. In some of your other classes, you may have heard this referred to as I do, we do, you do. And so very simply, it means just that. It means I do first, so I'm the model. We do, so we do it together. It's a shared experience. And then you do is the independent application part. So that gradual release of responsibility I want you to identify and define what that is in your own words, and why is that a best practice with reading comprehension? Why is that something that we know is proving to be a best practice when we're teaching students how to build their comprehension strategies and increase their capabilities with reading comprehension? You know, there's a lot that goes into it, and so it's not just something that we're reading and asking questions. There's a recommended research-based type of instructional approach with this gradual release of responsibility that really does meet the kids where they are and help to scaffold our instruction to get them to where they need to be. One of the things that probably most teachers struggle with is how we assess comprehension. So sometimes when we're assessing comprehension, we're asking open-ended questions and we're kind of getting things from all angles. And sometimes we have very specific questions that we need them to answer, and if they're not answering what that exact answer is, then we're counting points off, and you know, it gets a little bit tricky sometimes. So in order to really assess comprehension and know what we're teaching, we have to be looking at their learning and progress. So it's not just about what they're doing right now. It is about the growth that they probably have had in the time in your classroom through your instruction. So making sure that we're looking at the big picture and looking at that past instruction, knowing what we have taught them and what they should have mastered based on that instruction, and is that happening? And then also reflecting on where we need to go next. What is in the future? What do I need to be making sure that I'm, as a teacher, I'm touching base on so that they are prepared to be stronger at reading comprehension? So you're going to answer these prompts in here, where this answer here space is. And then the last piece of this week is going to be an anchor chart. So after reading chapter 4, there's a part of chapter 4 that talks about helping kids select books to read. And so if you are at all familiar, you may have heard about good fit books. And so it's a similar thing to where, you know, there are a list of criteria that students could use to choose a good fit book, or a book that is a good read for them. They're not going to struggle with it immensely and get frustrated, but it's not going to be so easy that it's not something that they really would choose to read, or they may choose to read just to get out of, you know, learning to read. And so we want to make sure that they're getting some good fit books. So I want you to do a little research on good fit books. So literally you can just Google search good fit books. I want you to do a little bit of research, and it should lead you to some resources for your future classroom. There are resources all over. Pinterest and Teachers Pay Teachers. Now, that being said, those should be references for you. You should not be using that resource as your item that you're going to submit, but you can certainly use those things as resources. So take what you're researching, take what you've seen in chapter 4 about helping students to choose the right books, and design an anchor chart for students supporting your students to pick the right books and read independently. So first of all, what is an anchor chart? So if you're not familiar with an anchor chart and you go back into your week 2, this link will take you into a short little video about using anchor charts in the classroom. And so this is only a few minutes long, about 3 minutes long, but it explains what an anchor chart is, why we use it, what benefit it proves in the classroom, and just gives some quick examples. So very simply, it is really just creating a shared experience, documenting your process or your thought or your resource on chart paper, and keeping that as a part of your display in your classroom so that students are able to refer to that as a tool. So I want you to create an anchor chart for good fit books. So you can do it 2 different ways. You can either create the anchor chart on chart paper, on a large piece of paper, or you can use a regular piece of paper and just smaller scale. Take a picture of it and insert it right here into this text box, or you can create it digitally and then do the same thing and insert it here. But I want you to create an anchor chart, but please do watch that short video just so you get a better understanding of what an anchor chart is before you create it. So those are your tasks for this week. You have your discussion board and your interactive notebook tasks, which are all right here. So you have 5 tasks within your INB to accomplish this week in addition to your discussion board. It does cover everything, comes from chapters 4 and 5. So if you have any questions about anything, please refer back to your syllabus. Please make sure that you ask each other in the class. And if you need to still, you're welcome to reach out to me. And I will see you in week 3.